Babylon system is the vampire. Yeah. Sucking the children day by day. Yeah.
Hello folks, and welcome to this edition of Pacific Progress Cast. We're talking about the bond rating downgrade that recently happened. S&P and Moody's have recently downgraded the long-term credit rating for U.S. sovereign debt from a rating of AAA to AA+. We know that these rating agencies are obviously lying. They should have downgraded the rating a long time ago to even a lower rating than this, because the currency, the dollar, and the Federal Reserve are completely collapsing as we know it right now, and they should have prepared people for this and markets around the world. The same thing happened in 2008. They should have prepared markets for the collapse, yet they didn't. They didn't downgrade any bonds. The ratings agencies weren't doing their due diligence to make sure that these bonds were worth what they were being rated as, and mysteriously things just collapse on everyone. This has happened once again, folks. Here we are. There's an inherent conflict of interest considering Moody's is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, one of the largest stockholding corporations in the world. I want to go around the world and show that we have the Italian government has recently raided Moody's and Standard & Poor's in their country to get some of the documentation and paperwork as to why they have done this. Are they abiding by regulations like this headline says, and why they didn't warn investors and markets of this sooner. We have banks in Illinois and Washington failing, according to the FDIC. Basically, folks, we've seen the market go down 10% in 2 weeks. I foresee 5% tomorrow when the markets open, and another 5% over the course of the following 2 weeks, for a 20% total adjustment in market. So that way the Federal Reserve can finally implement quantitative easing 3. Before I get into QE3, I want to show some other headlines up here. We've got the Indiana State Treasurer, Richard Murdoch, has called for the government to fire Tim Geithner, U.S. Treasury Secretary, over this U.S. ratings downgrade. China has called for a stable reserve currency. They're putting pressure on the dollar. They've been manipulating their currency to put further pressure on the dollar, and now we're seeing the effects of this. So to quickly get into QE3, there's a lot of talk about QE3, quite a bit of fervor over this at this point. I want to quickly explain what quantitative easing is for folks. It's quite a bit of a joke because it's just crime, but regardless, let me explain it. Quantitative easing is when central banks increase the money supply, print money, and purchases government bonds and corporate bonds from banks and other institutions. They do this, and they put money in those banks to make those purchases. This gives the bank excess reserves required for them to create new money by the process of deposit multiplication. That's the money multiplier. That's all got to do with economics and economics 101, folks. But because they do fractional reserve banking for every dollar that the central banks deposit, they can loan out $10 on that dollar. Some of these banks have gone crazy, as we've seen in the past, and loaned out $300 on the dollar, like we've seen Goldman Sachs do previously. To get into some of the risks, we see that risks include the policy being more effective than intended, spurring hyperinflation, which is what I've been predicting, or the risk of not being effective enough if the banks opt to simply pocket the additional cash in order to increase their capital reserves in a climate of increasing defaults in their present loan portfolio. That is what's happening as well. These banks are pocketing their cash, sitting on this cash right now because they don't know future outlooks of economics on a world scale. So they've got to be saving their money and stockpiling to make sure that they're not in bad shape at the end of this. And like I said, there's quite a bit of fervor and talk about QE3 around the networks, and Uriel Rubini's talking about QE3 has already begun. He's saying that QE3 will be too little, too late. And we'll have to see. I believe that QE3 will take the last bit of buying power and power whatsoever out of the US dollar and fully collapse the currency. It's going to make way for a new currency. What will that currency be, folks? We don't know. Will it be the North Atlantic Union and the Amero? Will it be the IMF's special drawing rights? We don't know. All we do know is that gold is going to hit at least $1,900 by the end of this year for sure, at least. I'm not telling people to invest in gold. I'm saying you should be investing in water, rice, guns to protect your family, batteries for lights, things to heat yourselves, things to keep to stay warm with, whatever you may need to survive in this extremely dangerous climate right now. Thanks a lot.